Let's get started. Okay, hello and welcome back to another movie review with myself. As everyone knows, I think Deadpool is even out now, Deadpool 2, so why not do a quick overview of one of my favourite ever movies, Deadpool 1, or Deadpool, starring Ryan Reynolds. And yes, as I said, this is one of my favourite films ever, really. One of my favourite Marvel films. I have a kind of little... I have the MCU on one side and then the other films on the other side. So, I'd say in the MCU, Infinity War and Ragnarok are my favourite. In the other side, Deadpool is definitely my favourite. But Deadpool is definitely one of my favourite ever films. I absolutely loved it. I've watched it so many times. If I'm ever feeling down, Deadpool goes on and I feel brilliant again. So this may be a little bit biased, but this is an absolutely amazing film. I just want to do a quick review about it until I go see Deadpool 2 and then do a review on that for you. Right, Deadpool 1. Let's get started. Okay, well, if you don't know the little background on Deadpool 1, everyone, or you may not, if you've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine, you know what I'm about to say. Deadpool was screwed over big time. Ryan Reynolds played Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, in the X-Men Origins Wolverine film, where he was shown as Wade Wilson, a normal guy who was part of the team, very good with samurai swords. It's kind of all you really learn about him, is wisecracking as Deadpool is. However, in the film, they, for some reason, they did this to him, and they decided to sew the mouth shut of a character who's known as the Merc with the Mouth. Deadpool is all about being a douchebag, talking to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, all of the above, and they did that to him. Yeah, so that was bad. It's like giving Captain America rollerblades. Honestly, like, it's like putting Batman with bat nipples. Huh? Yeah, they really screwed that film over as well, let's be honest. But yes, this was a passion of love for Ryan Reynolds. Obviously, he says he's been a massive fan for Deadpool for years, and after that film, they realised they totally fucked things up, and they wanted to make the film. So I remember I watched it online a good couple of years ago. It was some leaked Deadpool footage. It was the scene when he's on the top of the bridge, just an opening scene, and he jumps down through the car and fights the guys in the car while decapitating them and all that kind of good stuff. That was their test footage, but for some reason Fox and Sony, I think it's Fox and Sony, didn't want to show it, so they just did not ever give it a green light. They just said no, the scripts were all done. For some reason they just never gave it a green light. Somehow the test footage got leaked, you know, and then because it was such an overwhelming majority of support for the film, all of us massive fans just rallied together and get this film made. We'll accept it as an apology for what you did before. It eventually got the green light with Ryan Reynolds starring, and that's kind of the background of it. It was, they demolished Deadpool in Origins. They then made a bit of test footage to see what it was like. They never released it. It got leaked. And then now, because the support of it was so massive, they couldn't say no to it, and then that's why Deadpool got made. And thank the Lord, they made it rated R, or in the UK, rated 15, so we could have all that blood, guts, funny banter that he's known for. So there's a little bit of background on Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds. Or Ryan Reynolds. So Deadpool is essentially a love story with our main character, Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, and his love interest. It's essentially what it's about. It's a lovely romantic film with, you know, beautiful humour and beautiful scenes and lots of sunsets. Nah, it's not that at all. But it is a love story, and I'm quite glad they did that. They kind of grounded him, and they just gave him... It's not a love story like you'd see in, you know, most like Superman, where all of a sudden they like each other for some reason, and then because they're both lovely and they giggle and they go on holidays and all that kind of rubbish, cliche, boring, yucky stuff that you don't want in a film about a guy who's a mercenary. He goes around chopping people's heads off, and they did it exactly right. What's her name? Vanessa is her name. God, how did I forget that? But yeah, this is the story about Wade Wilson, who is a mercenary, not a great guy by any means. He's a bit of a... He's a bad man, and he comes across Vanessa, who is an equally fucked up woman, and they have a great love story, and he is struck down by multiple terminal cancers all at once, and he is essentially done. He doesn't want any part of her anymore, because he's like, cancer is a shit show, quoting, and he doesn't want to ruin her life. So he disappears and goes to a man that gave him a previously very strange card saying we can fix you and all this good stuff. He then, obviously you've seen the film, he then goes through the process of, I'm not sure, the ultra genetics, put through high stress, so the hormone, he mutates, he turns into a mutant, and this is when we meet Ajax, or Francis, as he's betterly known in the film, which I think is brilliant. And from there he mutates, they have a big fight, shit goes down, he thinks he's dead, and that's the end of it. But what was cut through the film was due to, I think it was either budgeting or cuts. The film was going to explore the time period between when Deadpool kind of found himself being Deadpool and looking for Francis. Obviously in the film you just see him kill off a couple of people. Where's Francis? Where's Francis? Where's Francis? Boom! There he is. But in the apparently originally it was going to be a lot longer, and you'd actually see him doing bits and bobs, but they obviously had to get rid of it. From there it's just, I'm not going to go through the story now actually, but it's essentially Deadpool finds Vanessa, turns into Deadpool, hunts him down because he fucked up his face, and it's a revenge story to try and fix what he did to him. But essentially he can't fix the whole time, he's just been lying, and that's what happens. Deadpool is an absolute brilliant film. It's got absolutely perfect casting. Ryan Reynolds is Wade Wilson. He is Deadpool. This is a character that is himself. I mean, I think it was even one of the first comics, is like, oh, you look... Somebody said, you look like a cross between Ryan Reynolds and a Shar-Pei. I mean, that's how bad he looked. The casting is just so spot on. With Vanessa is a great character. She's not your usual... What's the word I'm looking for? Because in a lot of films at the moment, especially superhero films, it's the damsel in distress, where she does silly things. It's like, oh, save me, like Lois Lane in Superman. It's just annoying, but in this it doesn't happen. She's just her own character. She's cool as hell, and you know, yeah, she does get kidnapped at the end, but that's to get back at Wade. Weasel, as his right hand man, is brilliant. He's just funny. Colossus, they did Colossus justice as well. Instead of being the, you know, just the smallish chrome guy in X-Men, they finally did him comic book justice. He got the ribs on his arms. He's a big Russian guy, massive metal man. Did well, great character, funny, and was Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Brilliant. Well, why not put someone in the film with Deadpool? Francis, Ajax, great character. I've seen him in a couple of films before. He's a good actor. You know, I don't know why they always cast as Brits, as the bad people. I mean, just because he has a British accent doesn't mean he's bad. But he's a great character, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Deadpool really is in his own category of superhero films, because he's obviously not a superhero. He's an advocate that he's not a superhero. He is an anti-hero all the way through. He kills a lot of people. He kills a lot of people in this film. A lot of people. Bad men, but it's, you know, it's deserved. But it's such a good film because it's so different. It's not, because Deadpool is very meta and he breaks the fourth wall. He's fully aware that he's in a comic book, and they could have gone one way. They could have obviously not put this in the film, and it had just been another superhero film with, you know, he's an anti-hero, or they'd have gone too far the other way and he constantly talks to the camera and it just kind of disconnects you from the action and the thing. But I think they got it right, hit the nail right on the head, that at opportune moments he does talk to the camera, he does talk to the audience, saying, oh yeah, fancy seeing you here, but all that kind of stuff. It's so good, and it's just a great film because it's hilarious. Like, I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the funniest films I've seen in a long time, because it's not all of the jokes pretty much land. I mean, from the bit where he's fighting Colossus and he's commenting on McAvoy or Stewart, these timelines are so confusing. It's so meta. He's actually establishing these timelines are confusing, what's going on. From the bit where he gets his arm chopped off and he's like, it's a mixture between it's about the size of a KFC Sport. It's just so good. The humour lands all the time. It's brilliant. The story is good. The characters are great. And one thing you've got to take into consideration, this isn't a humongous blockbuster film. This is not gigantic. This isn't Batman v Superman with hundreds of millions of pounds budget. I think this budget for this was something like 70, 80 million. It's a very tiny budget. And the money that it's made from that is colossal. And when you look at the special effects and everything used, it's very hard to see that it's not a high blockbuster. It is an incredibly good film. It's incredibly well made. Yes, at some points, well, some of the issues I do have with it is I wish it was more of a budgeted film. Sometimes you can kind of see that corners had to be cut. The film obviously had to be restricted in certain elements because they were running out of money. It was, like as I said previously, certain aspects of the story were removed and cut out for budgeting reasons. And I think they would have really given it a fuller experience and emphasised more character development, and obviously seen him designing his suit and, you know, more relationship with Vanessa and chasing down Francis, where he got the lead, why Francis was missing for a couple of years. All of those kind of little things were noticeably missed. But again, that's obviously all down to budget cuts, and you can't say anything bad about the people who made the film because that's not their fault. But everything they've done, and they've done it spot on in my opinion. It's such a good film. It's well rounded. It's funny. The pacing is just right. It never point at you going, oh, this is dull. I wasn't ever looking. You don't ever sit and look at your phone, because just the characters are all great, and they all have for such a short film with the one standing by itself. They all do seem very flushed out already. Deadpool, Vanessa, Weasel, his blind lady roommate, she's brilliant. The fact that he gets her to build IKEA furniture for fun, and they actually have full-on conversations about which is their better IKEA furniture. He walks around in blue Crocs and he loves it. He's so good, and I think I'm gonna have to watch it again now. See, it wouldn't be a Deadpool film, or it wouldn't be anything to do with Deadpool, obviously, if it wasn't about him killing lots of people in very savage ways and very funny ways, and just taking a lot of shots and hits himself. And they do that really well here. Like, the fight scenes are very well choreographed and established. Obviously you can tell some of them are CG, and a lot of the, especially one of the first fights on the bridge where he's got 12 bullets. He's like, right, I've only got 12 bullets, you're gonna have to share. And they're like, hey? And then he's obviously flipping, you know, he takes extra shots and goes like, bad Deadpool, worth it, and runs off. It's just so well, like, each of the fights, they are broken up into the right action scenes, and it just goes so well. The fight at the end with Ajax is great. Obviously he's well matched and he is taking a lot of beats, and obviously eventually he does win. There are a lot of Easter eggs in this film as well. And the one thing with Ajax is I don't quite understand his power, but we'll talk about that in the bits I don't quite agree with this film. But as I said, the bits I do absolutely love. Deadpool himself, Ryan Reynolds, the script, the jokes, everything about it, utterly perfect. I mean, there's not really much you could do extra in this film, and it would increase its hilarity. The characters are great. The story for me was brilliant. As I said, it could have been a little bit more established, a little bit more flushed out, but obviously that was due to budget cuts. The jokes in it are great. Even the fact that he's in the X-Men universe, and Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead are in it, and the fact that he goes to the X-Men mansion and he's like, oh, he even addresses the budget cuts in the film. That's what I love so much. He's like, oh, such a big house, and I only ever see two of you. It's almost like the network couldn't afford any more X-Men. Or they comment about the house that it blows up every couple of years, which it does. And it's just so good to have a film that's fully understands what it is. It's not taking itself seriously. It's, we're a Deadpool film. Let's have some banter with it. It's just so good. The fighting, brilliant. The characters, the jokes, everything just spot on for me. Obviously, I imagine most people have seen it. This film did amazing in the box office. I'm so glad that it got a green light to do another one. Coming on to what I didn't I wouldn't say what I didn't like. Some things that could have been done better, I'd say. As I said, if they had a bit more money, they could have flushed the story out a little bit more. I didn't quite like the character of Angel Dust. I know what they did with it. Obviously, I'm so fed up with women being given shit roles in films. I'm so fed up of the woman being the damsel in the distress, or she has to be saved, or she just used as a side character. To have a badass woman, angel dust, boom, who can go so strong and can tangle with anyone, is brilliant in my opinion. Yes, it's so good to have just somebody like that. It's just raising the flag for them, because these women characters in many films. I go back to Lois Lane. I really don't like Lois Lane as a character. I think she's terrible. She's just such a cliche. Whereas the characters especially the female characters in this, are just not cliches at all. They're fully fleshed out characters and are very well developed and just have personality. They're not relying on anyone else. But the one thing I didn't like, I think she was a little bit overpowered for what she was. I mean, Colossus, you saw Deadpool trying to fight, because Colossus' power is established quite early on. He's a massive metal man, and Deadpool is obviously fighting with him on the bridge, and no matter what he's doing, he's breaking all his bones just fighting him. Colossus is just standing there like, "This is ridiculous, Deadpool. Let's go." And like just yanks him up. So you find out how strong he is at the start, but then obviously when he's fighting Angel Dust at the start, in all fairness, he gets his arse handed to him. I mean, she absolutely... He puts in some good shots, but she essentially does beat the crap out of Colossus, like full on ground and pound. And it's like, okay, well, I don't... she's taking him down a bit too easy. This is a big X-Men character. This is a very strong X-Men character. A very, very strong one. For fuck's sake, he's made out of metal. And she's just taking him on by herself. I think that fight should have been more weighted towards Colossus, because he is such a big name. Maybe Angel Dust and a couple of others taking him on, and then they maybe get the better of him. But I mean, I understand what they did, but I just think it was a bit... I don't know. It didn't feel right, that fight, because it didn't seem that she should be beating him up that easily. Like the way she did it was quite easy. She barely... Well, she broke a sweat, but yeah, it's just... I didn't like it, because the Colossus is such a powerful character, and for her to just make him look like a bitch was a bit annoying. Then we come on to Ajax, which early on in the film he says that his powers are his nerve endings have been seared, so he can't feel pain or anything at all, and his reflexes have got faster. But it doesn't really establish why he's like really strong as well. You see him bending a big thick thing of metal like that around Deadpool. It doesn't really explain why he's that strong. So I think with him they kind of had the idea of his character, but then to up the ante in the fight scenes and against Deadpool, they obviously then kind of just made him a lot stronger and just kind of leveled him up with Deadpool even a little bit. You know, Deadpool was kind of losing towards him, so I think it was more to push the story in a certain direction, but obviously they didn't speak about it or develop it enough. Like, why is he now able to bend metal with his hands if he's only got fast reflexes? It's not quite how it works. But other than that, I don't really have any faults with the film. Maybe just some of the scaling with the characters was a little bit off, I think. And if it was a little bit more flushed out due to budget cuts. And do I have any other problems with Deadpool? Absolutely not. So I liked the story. I liked the fights, I liked the characters. Loved Ryan Reynolds in the role. I loved all of the jokes. I love the little Easter eggs. I love the fact he likes Wham! Or Wham! Because they earned it with Wham! And I also like the fact that the whole thing kind of kick-started from him getting cancer. And cancer's obviously a very horrendous thing in the world. But they dwelled on it. They made it really... You really cared for the characters by then, because they'd actually... I know they'd only been for a couple of minutes pretty much, but you already felt for them. And they didn't completely dwell on it too much to kind of take the... You know, just make it a sad film, but they kind of took his edge on it, put it on it, and said, yeah, you know, it's happening, let's get on with it, let's go make myself superhero. Oh, and thank you for the Green Lantern jokes. Don't want the suit green or animated. But as I said, the story for me was good. Could have been done a little bit more expanded, but we spoke about that. The scaling of the character's power, that was a little bit off for me. And I do like the way they did leave quite a lot of it open-ended, like, you know, how we knew what's his name from TGI Fridays, and there's certain characters in the background. I think it was Domino, I'm not sure, with like spikes in her back. There's a lot of Easter eggs just pointing towards another film, and I'm so glad they got green light. That's kind of all I can say. I absolutely adore this film. It's one of my favourite ever films. It's in my top 5 of all films, and it's definitely in the top 2 of my Marvel films. This, Infinity War and Ragnarok are all now up there. But it's just brilliant. I cannot wait to go see Deadpool 2 in a couple of days with Josh Brolin as Cable, to see what happens. So yes. And obviously I do love the whole story behind Deadpool. It's just brilliant. The fact that he even kept the suit. Well, let me just say this was recorded. Yes! Yes! The fact that Ryan Reynolds even kept the suit, and he used it for all marketing campaigns and still is using it. But was it apparently he was like, I've worked on this film for 8 years to get it made. On the final day of shooting, I put the suit, got the suit and just left with it. And he kept the suit. Apparently they kicked out, they didn't want him to have it, but he was like, I'm having the suit, so he kept the suit. And thankfully he did, because all the marketing for both films has been brilliant. And the jokes with Hugh Jackman and everything are still carrying on, and I absolutely love it. So guys, thank you for watching this review.